What's up, everybody? My name is Saber, the 7th letter. Over here in New York. Reside in Los Angeles, born and raised. I started in about 1990. And, you know, my parents were artists and my grandparents were artists, so art was always a very important thing for me. And, you know, graffiti art was the perfect medium for me at the time to get into. And I always made paintings even before I did graffiti. And basically, it's been interesting to see the graffiti movement move forward from where it was in the early days. You know, like for instance, tonight I met Riff, supposed to meet Phase 2 and others, and you know, without the original history, we wouldn't be where we're at. So I feel it's our job to carry on that lineage. One way I think we could carry on that lineage is by, you know, proving ourselves to the art world that, you know, we have a strong history and a strong foundation, and that's the most important thing to me, is the foundation. Because what most people don't realize is when you're painting on the street and you paint your pieces and your murals, that you're learning some very important skills about art. And so basically it's our job now to make sure that the rest of the world recognizes us as some people who are important in the artist community, you know. And it's not just about us, it's, you know, but we have important aspects of what we do, and that is, you know, like I said, the skills we learn on the street. And the transition's been smooth in the fact that I already made artwork. Always did paintings, always focused on detailed paintings. I drew ever since I could remember. It was always like, pretty much like the most important thing to me was to draw. And I used to skate, so basically I got in from skating to graffiti, so it was a good transition from there. And you know, I always worked on the artwork anyway, so now it's time to present that to the world and see how they respond to it, you know? So far, so good. So there's no name, it's just basically to represent kind of like a hyper graffiti style that you know, brings that lineage of wild style to the table. It was all off the top. Everything we do is usually off the top. We very rarely sketch out for pieces because we like to watch them build. It's basically a building process. You know, you have one puzzle piece and you keep adding to it. My buddy Andrew came down, built these panels for us, and put them up on the wall and said, go paint. So that's basically what we did. And you know, we like to use really nice mediums like Golden's paint and you know, these certain metallics and reflective paint. Nova Colors is a really nice brand. And we like to get a hold of the nice materials and utilize them and show that we should know what's going on with the materials. And you know, it's just all about presentation. And you know, basically just want to prove our point that, you know, most people in the world think that this is some bullshit and we're writing on walls, but the reality is that, you know, some of those hand styles you see on those walls are worth more than anything to us. And, you know, like I said, it's our job to carry on this lineage, regardless of where you're from. If you're from Italy, you're from New York, you're from LA, you're from Mexico City, we have to carry on this lineage. And to us, it's my fucking soul. It's my heart, you know. Revoke, Retna, 7th letter crew, and not just me, but various others, you know. We want to carry this on and keep it strong. I wasn't too into the bus bombing. I was more into the climbing. LA is very strenuous on buffing. You know, they say they spend $250 million a year removing graffiti. So LA is the most buffed city on the planet. And I keep hearing all this, you know, little bit of arguments going on about how buff this city is. And just today I'm walking by, you know, 15, 20 drop letters that say 02, 03, 04, 8, you know, 95, 96. In LA, they're all gone. That's it. There's nothing left. So maybe you'll find a tag in the LA River. But what we have in LA is a strong history of the gang hand style. And it wasn't so as radical as it is now with this, you know, militant perspective, basically just killing each other, or prison perspective. But that hand style is very important to us because it has a illuminated text. It's almost like call to arms is what it is. So our styles are basically, if you break them down, to us they're call to arms. You know, my S is a certain way. It breaks down. You know, basically it's like at arm, it's ready to scrap. It's like, you know, my S is ready to be bent, ready to be exchanged into, like, you know, different battle formations, you know. The head is cocked low, the bodies are big, there's tail whips and fucking spikes and shit. And it's like, you know, being influenced from like Robotech and Transformers as a kid, it kind of carries all that into it. And it's all about that, like, battle tech, you know, colors and, you know, just just really just trying to do the best job we can, you know. And what we do is when we have the LA style, you break down the certain gang hands, have certain elements like rounded heads, long legs. It almost look like you know, old men with canes, or like it's like a certain like it has a certain flavor to it. And we bring that old element of New York wild style train bombing, you know, from Phase 2, Vulcan. You know, Sharp was one of the first people to come to LA, Scene. And basically Sharp was the one who hooked up with my boy Eclipse. And from there, you know, certain styles started to evolve. Obviously through spray can art and subway art, that was the first Bibles to us. And we took those aspects and basically blended it with our street styles, which we seen, which is, you know, gang writing. And you know, not all of it is good, and not all of it needs to pay its respect, but the dudes that do it right, you see it, and you cannot deny the hand style and the importance of those hand styles. If you're lucky, not long. It's more for the photograph, and it's more for, that's why we do such big, intense spots. You know, my boy Auger, he's doing full wild styles on the fronts of billboards on Sunset. You know, it's about getting high, you know, not drugs, but climbing high and utilizing space and doing things that are unexpected. And that was because the streets are so strenuous with buffing. And you know, if you get caught in the street, you know, hopefully, you know, there's some bad situations that can go down. Getting caught slipping with certain you know, neighborhoods, and obviously the police. You know, the police helicopter is always out. So everybody's trying to get away from that gang mentality where it's just straight war. And so, you know, we all respect each other in the LA scene. We all kind of take care of each other. Even if we have problems or don't like each other, we still respect each other's space. Nah, it's not about that. I mean, it's about the rules. You got, you know, New York invented the rules. You know, there's a tag. A throw up goes over a tag. A piece goes over a throw up. You know, a mural goes over a piece. Unfortunately, everyone gets all upset and bent out of shape over one stupid tag. And obviously, if a tag is, you know, 20 years old, I'm not going to go over it. And if it's a respected writer, I'm not going to go over it. But you know, all these kids out here, they get upset about going over tags and shit. But the reality is there are rules. And you know, I respect what everyone has to do with graffiti, because those are all our people. So if you don't like me and you like my boys, you got to realize we're all here together. We're all in the same movement. So there's no reason to have all this, you know, beef and stuff. And I understand, you know, competition and strenuous competition that breeds certain healthy environments. But when it goes to the violent aspect of it is where I think things start falling apart. And you know, there's nothing wrong with healthy competition, but you know, I think we got to get our act together and realize that we're a movement. You know, we're not separated. We're not neighborhoods. We're a movement together, and that's the most important part. You know, we're basically here to push style.